Now we'll examine some looping structures. Quite often, you'll run across the need to execute the same or similar code multiple times. If you have a set of code that's going to be executed, say, 50 times, to replicate that code that many times will take up a lot of space and is not a good use of time or programming space. That's why we have looping structures. The first one we'll examine is the while structure. The while structure executes as long as the conditional statement evaluates as true. In this loop, the condition in the round brackets is true. So this loop could potentially go forever. This is called an infinite loop. Because there is nothing in this loop to tell it to stop, it could potentially run forever. PHP does have some server level control structures to keep that from happening, such as script timeouts. But if those have been edited because of some long running scripts on the server, then this simple loop could potentially lock up a server while running forever. So a warning, always, always, always have some condition to break out of a loop. If you do not include a breakout right within the loop, using the break statement, which we'll go over a little bit later, make sure that the condition will at some point evaluate to false. I would never, never, never execute this while loop. The potential for harm is just too great. Example 2 here is also an example of an infinite loop. It has a condition while a is less than 5, but there's nothing within the code that will ever make a equal to 5. Therefore, we have an infinite loop. Example 3 is the first loop that we can actually run in a browser. It will execute this block of code as long as the value of a is less than 10. Here we have a incrementing every time a loop happens. So the first time through, a has no value. Then we increment it and a becomes 1. Then we print 1 and a becomes 2. And we loop again, because every time this condition is being executed. A is 1, that's less than 10, execute this. A is 2, that's less than 10, execute this. And so on until a is incremented to 10, in which case this condition will evaluate to false and the loop ends. Try running this script. You'll get the numbers 1 to 9 printed out in your browser. And we have 1 through 9. The while loop is one way you can loop through a number of iterations, but there are a couple other looping structures we'll examine in this chapter. The while loop, though, is the one you'll find yourself using most often when you need to loop through a set of code or instructions.